unrivaled league, and the ratings are an embarrassment. They're a statement about how little interest there actually is in women's basketball beyond Caitlin Clark. The fact that they can't reach a CBA agreement and be confident that there's actually going to be a 2026 season of the WNBA because these idiots, Angel Reese and the rest, are like, oh man, if y'all not paying us $1 million, $2 million a season, we're not playing.
Look at these viewership numbers and tell me this isn't a complete disaster. We're not talking about a slight dip here. This is a full-blown collapse that reveals what the WNBA brass refuses to acknowledge. Take Caitlin Clark out of the equation, and suddenly nobody cares. But wait, it gets worse. The exact same players who benefited from her drawing massive crowds are now ready to torch the whole 2026 season because they believe they've earned NBA-level paychecks for performing in front of basically empty seats.
And nope, not good enough. We're not budging. We're not negotiating. The entire season is up for grabs. But, and here's how they got there. This group of women, delusional, allowed Nafisa Collier, whose husband and her and Breanna Stewart have started a rival league to the WNBA. They've allowed them to be the leaders of their negotiation for a new CBA agreement, collective bargaining agreement in the WNBA.
It's just how wild this gets. The league put 7-figure deals on the table. 7 figures for a 40-game schedule in an organization that bleeds millions every year. And what do they get back? Total rejection. Zero negotiation. Zero flexibility. Now the entire season hangs in the balance because Angel Reese and her allies believe they're owed superstar compensation no matter what the actual financials look like. But there's this crucial piece that nobody's talking about. The person running these talks isn't even a neutral party.
This group of women, delusional, allowed Nafisa Collier, whose husband and her and Breanna Stewart have started a rival league to the WNBA. They've allowed them to be the leaders of their negotiation for a new CBA agreement, collective bargaining agreement in the WNBA. People that have started a competitor to the WNBA are leading the negotiations for a new WNBA contract. This is insanity and retardation that we have never seen.
So get this straight. Nafisa Collier is steering these contract talks for WNBA players, while her husband operates the unrivaled league, which directly competes with the WNBA. Her business partner Breanna Stewart is right alongside her in this whole thing. They literally created a competing league, and somehow they're now controlling the WNBA's destiny. Imagine if Adam Silver let LeBron James handle NBA contract negotiations while LeBron was simultaneously building his own rival basketball organization. This isn't just ethically questionable. This is straight-up sabotage wrapped in player advocacy language. And everyone else just goes along with it.
But let's replay Nafisa Collier when she was talking tough and everybody's applauding her. You go, girl. Kathy Engelbert, they're not paying you guys what you're worth, and we're not paying Caitlin Clark what she's worth. Play the
league believes it succeeds despite its players, not because of them. I have the privilege of watching my husband run a league where he has to balance 100 different things at once. I won't pretend the job is easy, but even with all of that on his plate, he always takes the time to reach out to players when he sees an injury, whether it's unrivaled or even during the WNBA season. That is what leadership looks like. It's the human element. It's basic integrity, and it's the bare minimum any leader should embody.
Pay attention to this moment right here. This is Nafisa Collier's big opportunity to lay out her case against the WNBA leadership. Her moment to justify why Commissioner Kathy Engelbert needs to go, and what's her crushing indictment. Engelbert doesn't personally call injured players. That's literally it. That's the administrative failure that supposedly warrants destroying the whole organization. Meanwhile, her husband, who runs a league that pulled 30,000 viewers for its championship, gets celebrated as innovative because he remembers to send congratulations texts. This isn't legitimate leadership critique. This is prioritizing hurt feelings over hard numbers. Pure emotion trumping basic business sense, and this is exactly why women's sports keep imploding from their own unrealistic expectations.
Women aren't built for this type of leadership. It's all feelings over facts. It's there's no logic here. Hey, just pay us what we want. I don't want to hear about paying us what's sustainable. Just pay us what we want. We feel like we're owed this amount of money. And we've convinced America that 23 and 24-year-old women coming out of college, that paying them $70,000, $80,000 a year for a 4-month job is
time for some perspective. These players want $70,000 for 4 months of work as rookies fresh from college programs. This isn't economic hardship. This isn't worker exploitation. This isn't proof of gender-based discrimination. For the majority of college graduates in America, that salary would be incredible right out of school. And they're earning it playing basketball in a league that operates deep in the red. The male sports comparison is completely dishonest. NBA rookies get millions because the NBA creates billions in actual revenue. The WNBA hemorrhages cash. It exists purely through NBA subsidies. Every paycheck these players receive is essentially a gift, whether they want to acknowledge that or not.
Oh, well, you should have been a basketball player. Or these women are great basketball players, and they deserve more than that. No, they don't. I went into a profession that at the time, sports journalism, the newspaper industry, that was turning a profit. And they paid me $5 an hour. And I didn't complain. I thanked them. But the Bloomington Herald-Times was turning a profit. The WNBA loses millions of dollars a year. And I got a 4-month job that pays me $75,000. I'm undervalued. I'm underappreciated. I've been mistreated. This is lunacy.
When newspapers paid $5 an hour, they were actually making money. The WNBA burns through millions annually while paying rookies $75,000 for 4 months plus housing, plus travel, plus full benefits. One situation involved real exploitation. The other involves players who've somehow convinced themselves that losing money on their behalf is unfair treatment. This is where feminist ideology becomes actively harmful, because once you buy into the idea that women deserve identical compensation regardless of revenue generation, regardless of fan interest, regardless of fundamental economics, you've completely disconnected from reality. You're running on pure emotion and entitlement, and no sustainable business can function on those principles.
That's off to her. But she's nuts. And she's surrounded by other nuts that are confirming her nuttiness. She's going to sit here and preach. And again, I'm not a big defender of Kathy Engelbert because she's a nut too. But sitting there holding a press conference scolding them because your husband is the president of the unrivaled league and he's now smarter than her and he knows more about what to do than her. Are you kidding me?
Look, she's not completely off base about everything. Nafisa Collier has genuine talent. She comes from a solid background and built an impressive career. But she's surrounded by people who reinforce her worst instincts instead of confronting her with actual data. Now she's running negotiations that might completely destroy the league that created her professional opportunities. The real shame is that Commissioner Kathy Engelbert actually earned some of this criticism, just not for Collier's reasons. Engelbert's mistake isn't insufficient greeting cards. Her mistake is encouraging exactly this kind of fantasy thinking by pretending the WNBA's money problems are somehow imaginary.
Has made me just like, I don't really care about Caitlin Clark anymore because she's halfway crazy for not coming on air somewhere and saying the things that I'm saying. Hey, man, y'all crazy. we better take this contract they offered us and be thankful, because it's all from the private flights to the salaries we're getting paid. It's all charity. It's all welfare. And let's be appreciative. And then once we start making real money, then we'll go for the stupid superstar contracts like the NBA players have. But we're not there yet.
This part hits different for fans like me, who really invested in this season. Caitlin Clark had this perfect chance to be the reasonable voice in the room, to step up and say what everyone already knows, that these salary demands make no sense, that the league simply cannot afford this, that players should appreciate the unprecedented investment they're already getting. Instead, we got nothing. Complete silence. She watched Nafisa Collier and Angel Reese steer this whole thing toward disaster and never said a word. Eventually, that silence starts looking like agreement, and it makes it really tough to keep supporting someone who won't even defend the league that cuts her paychecks.
That's what this is all playing off of, how, the people within the Wall Street or whatever, they caused the collapse that damaged all of us and cost all of us. It cost me a lot of money. I lost so much money on the house I had in Kansas City. Anyway. But here's Megan Rapinoe in her latest commercial begging for LeBron James to come over and play basketball in the WNBA and for Messi to come play soccer against her. But anyway, play the clip.
When you're young, you believe that you can do anything. And then the world tries to set limits for you.
Tell you what's allowed,
What's normal.
who you're supposed to be.
But on the field, the track, the court, here, you get to be exactly who you are.
Because at our core, we're still the kids who just want to play. The go big game changers.
The living, breathing fabric of this country. Supporting trans youth isn't just about sports.
It's about freedom.
On and off the field. It's more than a game.
Megan Rapinoe has teamed up with the ACLU to promote the whole transgender deal. And if you listen to that commercial, and for those of us that have a biblical...
So, now we get the inevitable next chapter. The ACLU ad, featuring Megan Rapinoe pushing for transgender athletes in women's competitions, all this messaging about self-identification, about rejecting boundaries, about becoming whatever you want regardless of biology or basic reality, everything connects here. It's the identical mindset, the same rejection of objective facts in favor of subjective emotions. The same demand that reality reshape itself around individual preferences instead of individuals accepting reality's terts, and it creates identical outcomes every single time. When you construct any organization on the foundation that feelings outweigh facts, that identity outweighs results, that ideology outweighs economics, you're building on quicksand, and sooner or later, everything crumbles.
It's because, again, they want to decide things that God has decided. It's not about you. And so if you're a Christian or if you have a brain, you consult the maker, the owner, the creator. You let him define you. But this whole movement is about, I get to define. I'm my own God. Yes, I have a vagina and a clitoris. But I get to decide I should really have a bat and balls. And I'm going to have someone sew one on me so that I can run around and pretend to be a man. Or I can run around and pretend to be a woman. And you wonder why things around them are collapsing? They think they're the makers. They think they're the creators. They think they're their own gods. And that's why everything that they build collapses. And that's why women's sports are going to collapse. Because the delusion of women, the whole feelings over facts and logic, it has...
What makes this extra painful is the missed opportunity. The WNBA caught lightning in a bottle this season. Caitlin Clark delivered attention they'd never seen before. Record-breaking viewership, packed arenas, major media coverage. The league should have used that momentum to build something lasting and set themselves up for genuine long-term success. Instead, they completely wasted it. They let bitter players tear down their biggest attraction. They allowed racial politics to hijack the storyline. They gave union leaders with obvious conflicts of interest the power to sabotage negotiations. Now they're staring at a possible work stoppage that could permanently kill the league. Because these players don't grasp something crucial. Fan loyalty in women's basketball is incredibly fragile. It's not generational like the NBA. It's not woven into American sports culture. People showed up this year specifically for Caitlin Clark, not for the WNBA brand generally. If 2026 gets canceled, those casual viewers aren't coming back. They'll find something else to watch. The league gets stuck with the tiny hardcore audience that existed before Clark arrived. The unrivaled numbers prove this perfectly. 30,000 people watched a championship game with supposedly the WNBA's biggest names. That's not a television audience, that's a statistical error. That's evidence that without WNBA infrastructure, these players have virtually zero drawing power. Yet Napheesa Collier, whose husband just proved how little demand exists for women's basketball beyond Caitlin Clark, is the one deciding the WNBA's fate. She wants salaries that would need 10 times current viewership to make financial sense. She's threatening to kill an entire season if she doesn't get everything she wants. And somehow, other players think this represents strong leadership. This is what happens when you value empowerment slogans over economic understanding. When you convince yourself that demanding more automatically means you deserve more. When you confuse confidence with competence and mistake loudness for legitimacy. The $5 hourly wage comparison wasn't about dismissing anyone's value. It was about grasping market fundamentals. Newspapers paid terrible wages but generated profits. Those wages could continue indefinitely, even though they were unfair. The WNBA pays substantial wages while losing millions. Those wages are completely unsustainable, even if they feel insufficient. One model could theoretically last forever. The other is racing toward guaranteed failure. Pointing this out isn't gender discrimination, it's elementary business analysis. The same logic you'd use for any company in any field. When expenses exceed income, you either reduce expenses, increase income, or close down. There's no magical fourth option where you keep bleeding money forever, because employees feel underappreciated. The NBA has bankrolled the WNBA for years out of goodwill and genuine commitment to growing women's basketball. But that financial support has limits. If WNBA players force a work stoppage, they're basically proving that no amount of support will ever satisfy them. At that point, the NBA has every justification to step back and let the league survive independently, which means watching it die. So here's what WNBA players need to ask themselves. Is this really worth destroying everything over? Are Napheesa Collier's hurt feelings about phone calls really more important than preserving the entire league? Is Angel Reese's demand for $2 million to play for 5,000 fans really more valuable than having a professional league at all? Because those unrivaled ratings gave us the answer. Without the WNBA, most of these players have no stage, no audience, and no negotiating power. They're not NBA superstars who could launch their own league and attract millions of viewers. They're specialized athletes in a specialized sport that most Americans ignore. That's not meant as an attack, that's just the truth. Truth that demands humility, appreciation, and smart planning instead of entitlement, resentment, and self-destruction. The WNBA created opportunities for these players that would never exist in an actual free market. The minimum they could do is avoid destroying it. But they won't listen, because listening means admitting they're wrong. Admitting they're wrong means abandoning the ideology that labels them oppressed victims who deserve whatever they demand, simply because they demand it. So they'll keep pushing. They'll keep making threats. They'll keep letting people with competing interests run their negotiations. And when everything falls apart, they'll blame everyone except themselves. What's your take? Should WNBA players stick to their salary demands, or are they destroying their own future? Share your thoughts below. Make sure to subscribe, and tell me whether you think we'll even have a 2026 WNBA season. Because honestly, I wouldn't bet on it.